You understand English, you know the words, you've been learning for years. So why, when it's time to speak, everything stops? Your mind goes blank, your heart starts racing, simple sentences suddenly feel impossible, and in that moment, it feels like all your effort meant nothing. You ask yourself, what's wrong with me? Why can I understand, but not speak? This is where most people quit, because no one explains this clearly. You are not bad at English. You are not a slow learner, and you are definitely not a beginner. You were just trained in a way that makes speaking impossible. You were taught to think first, to translate, to be perfect, and that system is exactly what's blocking your voice. That's why you freeze. That's why your words disappear. That's why you stay silent, even when you know what to say. But here's the truth that changes everything. You don't need more grammar. You don't need more vocabulary. You need to retrain your brain to speak the right way. And once you understand this, you stop freezing. You stop overthinking. And for the first time, English starts coming out of you. Naturally, you didn't learn English to speak. You learned it to analyze. From the very beginning, your learning was built around rules, structure, and correctness. In school, you were told to focus on grammar, to make sure every sentence is right, to think carefully before you speak. You were taught to translate from your own language into English, to check tenses in your mind, and to fix mistakes before opening your mouth. Slowly, without realizing it, your brain created a habit. Now, it started treating English like a test instead of a real language. So now, every time you try to speak, your brain does the same thing it was trained to do. It stops, it checks, it analyzes. It asks questions like, is this correct? Which tense should I use? What if I make a mistake? And while your brain is busy doing all this, your speaking stops. This is why you feel slow. This is why you freeze. Not because you don't know English, but because you are using the wrong system. Think about how you speak your own language. You don't think about grammar. You don't build sentences step by step. You just speak. Words come out naturally, without effort, without fear. That is because your brain is not analyzing. It is reacting. But in English, you switched to a different mode. Instead of reacting, you started solving. And speaking is not something you solve. It is something you do. Real speaking is fast. It is automatic. It is not perfect. People speak with small mistakes, broken sentences, simple words, but they keep going. That is why they sound fluent. They don't stop to fix everything. They focus on expressing, not correcting. When you try to analyze while speaking, even for 1 second, you break your flow. That small pause grows bigger. Your mind gets confused between thinking and speaking, and that confusion creates hesitation. The more you hesitate, the more pressure you feel, and the more pressure you feel, the harder it becomes to speak. So, the problem is not your English. The problem is your habit. You trained your brain to think before speaking, when you should have trained it to speak without thinking. And this is the shift you need to make. You must slowly stop checking every sentence. You must allow yourself to speak even if it's not perfect. You must move from, is this correct, to, can I express my idea? Because fluency is not about perfect sentences. It is about continuous speaking. The moment you stop treating English like a subject and start treating it like a natural reaction, everything begins to change. Your need to be perfect is silently killing your fluency. Every time you try to speak, there is a quiet voice inside your mind that stops you before you even begin. It tells you to slow down, to be careful, to make sure everything is correct before you say anything. It checks your grammar, your sentence structure, your pronunciation, and it does not allow you to move forward until everything feels perfect. At first, This feels like a good habit. It feels like you are trying to speak properly, like you are improving. But in reality, this habit is the very thing that is holding you back, because speaking does not work like that. Speaking is not about building the perfect sentence in your head and then delivering it. Speaking is about expressing your thoughts in real time, without stopping, without overthinking. It is fast, natural, and sometimes messy. And that is completely normal. But your brain has been trained to believe that mistakes are bad, that if you say something wrong, it means you are not good enough. So instead of speaking freely, you start protecting yourself. You slow down, you think more, you hesitate, and sometimes you choose silence just to avoid making a mistake. This is where fluency starts to break. Worse, because the moment you focus more on being correct than being clear, you lose your natural flow. Your mind becomes heavy, your sentences become delayed, and even simple ideas start feeling difficult. You are not speaking anymore, you are performing, and performance creates pressure. That pressure builds inside you every time you try to speak. Your heart beats faster, your mind becomes crowded, and suddenly, even the words you already know feel far away. Not because you forgot them, but because your brain is too busy trying to be perfect. This is the hidden trap. The more you try to be perfect, the less you speak. And the less you speak, the slower you improve. Fluent speakers understand something very important that most learners miss. They know that communication is more important than perfection. And they know that small mistakes do not stop understanding. They allow themselves to speak freely, even if it is not 100% correct. They don't stop in the middle of a sentence to fix every error. They keep going. They adjust later. They focus on the message, not the mistake. And that is why they sound confident. Confidence does not come from being perfect. It comes from being comfortable with imperfection. You must give yourself permission to speak without checking everything. You must allow mistakes to happen without judging yourself, because every mistake you make while speaking is not failure, it is progress. Think about a child learning to speak. They don't wait until they can say everything perfectly. They speak with broken words, incomplete sentences, and still, they keep going. That is how fluency is built. You need to return to that mindset. Stop trying to sound perfect. Start trying to stay in motion. Because fluency is not about saying everything right. It is about not stopping. The moment you let go of perfection, your mind becomes lighter. Your words start coming faster. Your confidence begins to grow. And slowly, speaking stops feeling like pressure and starts feeling natural. So the next time you speak, don't ask yourself, "Is this perfect?" Ask yourself, "Can I keep going?" That one shift changes everything. Translation is slowing you down more than you realize. There is a hidden habit inside your mind that you don't even notice anymore, but it controls everything when you try to speak. Before you say anything in English, you first think in your own language. You form the idea there, and you build the sentence there, and then you try to convert it into English. It feels normal, it feels safe, it feels like the only way. But this one habit is silently slowing you down more than anything else, because translation takes time, and real speaking does not wait. When someone talks to you, the moment is moving fast. The conversation is flowing, but your brain is stuck in the middle, trying to convert one language into another. While you are translating, the moment passes. The opportunity to respond fades, and that is when you feel stuck. This is why you freeze. Not because you don't know what to say, but because you are trying to say it in 2 steps instead of 1. Your brain was never designed to handle real-time translation during conversation. It becomes overloaded. It tries to remember words, check grammar, unmatch meanings, all at once. And that overload creates confusion. The more you try to translate perfectly, the more your mind slows down, and slowly, speaking starts to feel heavy. You start doubting yourself. You start hesitating. You start thinking, why is this so hard for me? But the truth is simple. You are not struggling with English. You are struggling with translation. Fluent speakers do not translate. They don't take a sentence from their native language and convert it. They think directly in English, not big, complicated English, but simple, clear English. Instead of thinking, how do I say this perfectly, they think, what is the easiest way to express this? And that changes everything, because when you stop translating, your brain becomes faster, your thoughts become lighter, your responses become natural. You don't need big sentences. You don't need advanced words. You just need simple, direct expression. For example, instead of thinking a long sentence in your language and trying to convert it, you can say, I don't understand. Give me a minute. I will tell you. It's okay. These small, simple thoughts are powerful because they come instantly. They don't need translation. This is how fluency begins. Step by step, you train your brain to think in English. At first, it feels strange. It feels uncomfortable. Your sentences feel small and limited. But that is part of the process, because speed comes before complexity. First, you become fast with simple sentences. Then, slowly, your sentences grow naturally. But if you keep translating, you will always stay slow, no matter how much you learn. So the real goal is not to learn more English. The real goal is to remove the extra step in your mind, to go from thought directly to English. The moment you stop translating, your speaking starts flowing. And for the first time, it feels natural. You know the words, but your brain doesn't know how to use them. You've learned so many words. You recognize them instantly when you hear them. When you read, everything makes sense. You can even understand conversations clearly. But the moment you try to speak, those same words feel far away, like they disappear when you need them the most. This is one of the most confusing feelings for any learner. You start thinking, why can I understand everything, but I can't say anything? And slowly, you begin to doubt yourself. But here's the truth that changes everything. One, you don't have a vocabulary problem, you have a usage problem. Knowing a word is not the same as being able to use it in real time. Your brain has stored the word, but it has not trained itself to pull that word out quickly and place it inside a sentence while speaking. And speaking does not give you time to search. It requires instant response. So what happens? Your brain starts searching for the right word, the right structure, the right way to say it. And in that moment, everything slows down. You hesitate. You pause. And sometimes you say nothing at all. Not because you don't know English, but because your brain doesn't know how to use it under pressure. This is where most learners get stuck. They keep learning more words, thinking that more vocabulary will fix the problem, but it doesn't. Because the issue is not how many words you know, it's how fast you can use the words you already have. Fluent speakers don't think about individual words. They think in patterns, small, repeated sentence structures that they have used so many times that they come out automatically. Phrases like, I want to, I'm going to, I don't think, it depends, I feel like. These patterns are like shortcuts for the brain. Instead of building a sentence from zero every time, the brain simply fills in the pattern. And that's what makes speaking fast. But you were never trained this way. You learned words separately. You memorized meanings. but you didn't practice using those words inside real, repeated sentence patterns. So your brain treats every sentence like a new task instead of something familiar. And that is why speaking feels difficult, because your brain is building instead of recalling. To fix this, you need to shift your focus. Stop chasing new words. Start mastering the ones you already know. Take simple patterns and repeat them again and again. Use them in different situations. Say them out loud. Make them part of your daily speaking. Over time, these patterns become automatic. Your brain stops searching and starts responding. And this is where something powerful happens. Your confidence begins to grow, your hesitation begins to disappear, your speaking starts to feel natural, because now you're not trying to find English anymore. You're using it. So remember this clearly. Fluency is not about how many words you know. It is about how quickly your brain can use them without stopping. The moment your words turn into patterns, your speaking begins to flow. The fear of sounding wrong is keeping you silent. There is something deeper than grammar, deeper than vocabulary, deeper than practice, that is quietly controlling your ability to speak. It's not your English, it's your fear. Every time you open your mouth to speak, there is a small voice inside you that stops you before you even begin. It whispers, "What if this is wrong? What if they don't understand me? What if I sound stupid?" And in that moment, you hesitate. You start thinking too much. You slow down your words. You change your sentence again and again inside your mind. And sometimes you decide not to speak at all. Not because you don't know what to say, but because you are afraid of how it will sound. This fear is invisible, but its effect is powerful. It makes simple sentences feel difficult. It turns small conversations into pressure. It makes you doubt words you already know. And slowly, it trains your brain to choose silence instead of expression. This is where many learners get stuck for years. They keep learning more English. They keep watching videos. They keep improving their understanding. But when it comes to speaking, nothing changes, because the real problem was never knowledge. It was fear. Fear of judgment. Fear of mistakes. Fear of not being perfect. And here's the truth you need to understand clearly. No one becomes fluent without sounding wrong first. Every fluent speaker you see today, at some point they struggled. They made mistakes. They said sentences that were not perfect. They mispronounced words. They paused. They felt uncomfortable, but they didn't stop. They kept speaking, even when it felt awkward. That is the difference. Fluency is not built by avoiding mistakes. It is built by moving through them. When you try to avoid every mistake, you block your own progress. You create pressure inside your mind, and that pressure makes your brain freeze. Even the words you know become hard to use. But when you accept that mistakes are part of the process, something changes. Your mind becomes lighter. Your speech becomes faster. Your confidence starts to grow, because now you are not trying to protect your image. You are trying to express yourself, and expression is what creates fluency. Think about this deeply. People don't connect with you because your English is perfect. They connect with you because they understand you. Or communication is not about being flawless. It is about being clear and real. So the next time you feel that fear, don't fight it and don't run from it. Speak anyway, even if your sentence is not perfect, even if you pause, even if you make a mistake, because every time you speak despite that fear, you weaken it, and every time you stay silent, you make it stronger. Your goal is not to sound perfect. Your goal is to keep speaking, because the moment you stop fearing mistakes is the moment your fluency begins to grow, and slowly step by step. The silence disappears, the hesitation fades, and your voice finally becomes free. You consumed English, but you never trained yourself to speak it. You've spent hours listening to English. You've watched videos, movies, podcasts, and lessons. You understand more than you ever did before. You can follow conversations, you recognize phrases, and sometimes you even feel like you're improving fast. But when it's time to speak, nothing comes out the way you expect. This is where the confusion begins. You start thinking, I understand so much, so why can't I speak? And the answer is simple, but most people ignore it. You trained your ears, but you never trained your mouth. Listening helps you understand the language. It builds familiarity. It teaches you how English sounds. But understanding is only half of the skill. Speaking is a completely different process. It is physical. It involves movement. Your mouth, your tongue, your voice, they all need to learn how to produce English naturally. And this only happens through speaking. You cannot build this skill by watching. You cannot build it by listening alone. Imagine this clearly. You watch someone swim every day. You understand how they move. You see their technique. You know exactly what they are doing. But if you jump into the water without practice, your body will not move the same way, because watching is not doing, and English works the same way. You've been watching, you've been listening, but you haven't been doing. That's why your speaking feels weak, because your brain may know the sentence, but your mouth is not used to saying it. There is no connection between your thoughts and your speech, so when you try to speak, everything feels slow and uncomfortable. This is not a lack of intelligence, it is a lack of training. Speaking requires repetition. It requires saying the same sentences again and again until they become easy. It requires hearing your own voice, correcting yourself naturally, and building rhythm. At first it feels strange. You might feel awkward speaking alone. You might feel like you're not improving fast enough. But this stage is necessary, because this is where your brain and your mouth start working together. Every time you speak out loud, you strengthen that connection. Your words come out faster. Your pronunciation becomes clearer. Your hesitation starts to reduce. And slowly, something changes. You stop thinking too much. You start responding faster. You begin to feel more natural. This is what real practice looks like, not passive learning. Active speaking, even if it's simple, even if it's repetitive, even if no one is listening, because fluency is not built by what you understand. It is built by what you can say without stopping. So if you truly want to improve your speaking, you need to change your approach. Don't just consume English. Start producing it. Speak daily. Repeat sentences. Talk to yourself. Use your voice. Because the moment you start training your mouth, your English finally starts coming alive. You're trying to say too much. And that's why you say nothing. When you try to speak English, you don't just want to speak. You want to speak perfectly, clearly, and completely. You try to express your full idea in one sentence. You try to make it sound advanced, smooth, and impressive. And without realizing it, you put a heavy load on your own mind. Your brain is now trying to do too many things at once. It is searching for the right words, checking grammar, building a long sentence, and making sure everything sounds correct. And while all this is happening, your speaking stops. You pause. You hesitate. And sometimes you say nothing at all, not because you don't know what to say, but because you are trying to say too much at once. This is one of the most common habits that quietly blocks fluency. You believe that good English means long sentences. You think that if you speak in small or simple sentences, it will sound weak or basic. So you try to say everything in one go. But real speaking doesn't work like that. Fluent speakers don't try to deliver perfect long sentences every time. They speak in small pieces. They express one idea, then another, then another. They keep the flow moving instead of trying to make everything perfect in one sentence. They might say something like, I went there yesterday. It was really good. I liked the place. I want to go again. Simple, broken, natural, but clear. And that is what makes them sound fluent, because fluency is not about how long your sentences are. It is about how smoothly you can keep speaking. When you try to say everything at once, you create pressure. Your brain becomes overloaded. It tries to organize too many thoughts in one moment, and eventually it shuts down. But when you reduce your sentences, something changes. Your mind becomes lighter. Your thoughts become clearer. Your words come faster. You stop building, and you start flowing. This is the shift you need to make. Stop trying to sound advanced. Start trying to stay in motion. Break your ideas into small parts. Speak one thought at a time. And don't worry if your sentences feel simple or incomplete. What matters is that you keep going. Because communication is not about complexity. It is about clarity. And clarity comes from simplicity. At first it may feel strange. You may feel like your English is too basic. But this is exactly how fluency begins. Simple sentences create speed. Speed creates rhythm. And rhythm creates confidence. Once your speaking becomes fast and natural, then your sentences will grow automatically. You won't have to force complexity. It will come on its own. But if you keep chasing perfect, long sentences from the start, you will keep getting stuck. So remember this clearly. You don't need to say everything at once. You just need to say something and keep going. Because the moment you stop trying to say too much is the moment you finally start speaking. More knowledge won't fix you. Repetition will. For a long time you believed the answer was to learn more vocabulary, more grammar rules, more advanced phrases. You thought that if you just collected enough knowledge, one day speaking would suddenly become easy. So you kept learning. You watched more lessons, saved more words, understood more explanations. And yes, your knowledge increased. But your speaking didn't change the way you expected. This is where the real realization begins. Your problem is not that you don't know enough. Your problem is that you don't use what you already know enough times. Knowledge feels like progress, but it can also become a trap, because every time you learn something new, your brain feels satisfied. It feels like you are moving forward, but speaking is not built on understanding. It is built on repetition. Your brain does not become fast by learning once. It becomes fast by doing the same thing again and again until it no longer has to think. Think about how you learned your own language. You didn't learn thousands of new sentences every day. You repeated simple patterns again and again, the same phrases, the same structures, the same expressions, until they became automatic. That is why you can speak without thinking today. But in English, you changed the process. Instead of repeating what you know, you keep chasing what you don't know. You move from one topic to another, one video to another, one word list to another, and your brain never gets enough time to turn anything into a habit. So when it's time to speak, your mind searches instead of responding. This is why you feel slow, not because you lack knowledge, but because your brain has not been trained through repetition. Repetition is what creates speed. Repetition is what removes hesitation. Repetition is what builds confidence. When you repeat the same sentence many times, something powerful happens. At first, you think about it. Then it becomes easier. Then it becomes automatic. And finally, it becomes part of you. You don't have to search for it anymore. It just comes out. That is fluency. It is not about knowing everything. It is about mastering a small number of things so deeply that they become natural. So instead of asking, "What should I learn next?" start asking, "What should I repeat today?" Take simple sentences and use them again and again. Need you speak them out loud. Use them in different situations. Let your brain hear them, feel them, and recognize them as familiar. At first, it may feel boring. It may feel like you are not progressing. But this is where real progress happens. Because repetition builds muscle memory in your speaking. It builds speed in your thinking. It builds confidence in your voice. And slowly, your English starts changing. You stop pausing, you stop searching, you start responding. So understand this deeply. More knowledge will not fix your fluency, but repetition will. Because the goal is not to know more English. The goal is to make English a natural part of you. And that only happens when you repeat it enough times. These daily sentences will rewire your speaking instantly. Up to this point, you've understood the problem. You've seen how overthinking, translation, fear, and lack of practice are slowing you down. But now comes the most important part, the solution that actually changes how you speak, and it's much simpler than you think. You don't need complicated methods. You don't need advanced vocabulary. You don't need long grammar rules. What you need are daily sentences. Simple, small, repeated sentences that train your brain to respond without thinking. This is where everything starts to shift. Because right now, your brain is used to stopping. It is used to thinking, checking, translating, and then speaking. That's why your responses feel slow and heavy. But when you start practicing daily sentences, you train your brain in a completely different way. You train it to react, not think. React. For example, and sentences like, "I'm coming," "Wait a second," "I don't understand," "Tell me again," "Give me some time," "I'll do it later." These are not big or complex sentences, but they are powerful because they are used again and again in real conversations. When you repeat these sentences every day, something begins to happen inside your mind. At first, you think before saying them. Then you say them faster. Then one day, they come out automatically. And that is the moment your brain starts changing. These sentences become shortcuts. They remove the need to think too much. They give your brain ready-made responses that it can use instantly. So instead of freezing, you speak. Instead of searching, you respond. This is how fluency is built, not through big, difficult sentences, but through small, repeated ones. The power of daily sentences is not just in what you say, but in how often you say it. Repetition creates familiarity. Familiarity creates speed, and speed creates confidence. When your brain becomes familiar with certain patterns, it stops treating them like new information. It recognizes them instantly and sends them out without delay. This removes hesitation, this removes fear, this removes overthinking, and slowly your speaking starts to feel natural. Another important thing is that daily sentences train your listening and speaking together. When you say them out loud, you hear yourself. You build rhythm. You become comfortable with your own voice in English. This is something most learners never do. They keep everything inside their head, but fluency lives in your voice, not your thoughts. So when you practice daily sentences, you are not just learning English. You are building a habit of speaking. Even if you start with just 10 or 20 sentences a day, repeated again and again, it will create a strong base. Over time, you can expand. You can add more sentences, you can connect ideas, but the foundation remains the same: simple, repeated, spoken. And this is where the magic happens, because one day you will notice something different. You will respond without thinking. You will speak without stopping. You will feel comfortable using English, not because you learned something new, but because you repeated something enough. So don't underestimate this step. Daily sentences are not basic. They are powerful. They are the bridge between knowing English and actually speaking it. And the moment you make them part of your daily routine, your brain starts rewiring itself for fluency. Fluency isn't about accuracy. It's about speed and flow. For a long time, you believed that fluency means speaking perfect English. You thought that if your grammar is not correct, if your sentences are not complete, if your pronunciation is not ideal, then your English is not good enough. So every time you speak, your focus goes to accuracy. You try to make sure everything is right before you say it. You slow down your thoughts, you check your words, you adjust your sentence again and again. And by the time you're ready, the moment is gone. This is where everything starts to break. Because real fluency is not built on perfection, it is built on movement. Fluent speakers are not perfect speakers. They make small mistakes, and they use simple words. Sometimes their sentences are not even complete, but they keep going. And that is what creates the feeling of fluency, because when someone speaks with speed and flow, your brain understands them easily. The conversation feels natural. There is rhythm, there is continuity, there is energy. But when someone speaks slowly, with long pauses and constant hesitation, even if their grammar is correct, it feels difficult to follow. This is the truth most learners don't realize. People don't judge your English by how perfect it is. They feel your English by how smoothly it flows. And flow comes from speed. Not fast in a rushed or chaotic way, but fast enough that your thoughts move naturally into words without stopping. Fast enough that your brain doesn't get stuck between thinking and speaking. Aye, but your current habit is the opposite. You slow yourself down to be correct. You stop yourself to fix small mistakes. You interrupt your own flow again and again. And every interruption breaks your rhythm. When your rhythm breaks, your confidence drops. When your confidence drops, your speaking becomes harder. It becomes a cycle. But the moment you shift your focus from accuracy to flow, everything starts to change. You stop trying to fix every word. You stop worrying about small mistakes. You allow your sentences to move forward even if they are not perfect, and suddenly your speaking feels lighter. Because now your brain is not overloaded. It is free to express. This is how real communication works. Think about people who speak fast and naturally. They don't stop in the middle of a sentence to correct themselves every second. They keep going. They trust their flow. And even if they make a mistake, they continue without breaking their rhythm. That is what makes them sound confident. Confidence is not about being right. It is about not stopping. When you focus on speed and flow, you give your brain a different signal. You tell it, keep moving. And when your brain keeps moving, it becomes faster over time. At first, you may feel uncomfortable. You may feel like your sentences are not clean enough. But this is part of the process, because speed comes before accuracy. First, you learn to speak without stopping. Then slowly, your accuracy improves naturally. But if you wait to be accurate before you speak, you will keep waiting. So the next time you speak, don't ask yourself, is this correct? Ask yourself, can I keep the flow going? Because fluency is not about saying everything perfectly. It is about saying something smoothly, continuously, and without fear. And the moment you protect your flow instead of your perfection, Your English starts to sound alive. You're not forgetting English. Your mind is blocking it. There are moments when you try to speak, and suddenly everything feels empty. You know this feeling. A simple question is asked. You understand it clearly. You know the answer in your mind. But when it's time to speak, the words don't come out. Your mind goes blank. You pause, you struggle, and you start thinking, "Did I forget everything?" And that thought makes it even worse. But here is the truth you need to understand deeply. You are not forgetting English, or your mind is blocking it. All the words you learned, all the sentences you practiced, all the understanding you built, it is still there. Nothing disappeared. Nothing was lost. But in that moment, your brain is under pressure. And pressure changes how your brain works. When you feel nervous, when you feel judged, when you feel like you must perform well, your mind shifts into a defensive state. It focuses on protecting you instead of helping you express yourself. And in that state, access becomes slow. It's like your brain closes certain doors. The information is inside, but you can't reach it easily. That's why even simple sentences feel hard. Not because they are difficult, but because your mind is not relaxed enough to use them. Think about times when you are alone, when you are relaxed, when no one is watching, and when there is no pressure. Suddenly your English feels better. You can think more clearly. You can speak more easily. Words come faster. What changed? Not your knowledge, your state of mind. This is something most learners never realize. Fluency is not just about what you know. It is about how calm your mind is when you try to use it. When your mind is relaxed, your brain works smoothly. It connects ideas faster. It brings out words easily. It allows your speech to flow. But when your mind is tense, everything slows down. You start overthinking. You start doubting. You start blocking yourself. And slowly, it feels like you don't know anything, even when you do. This is why managing your mind is just as important as learning the language. You need to reduce pressure. You need to stop treating speaking like a test. You need to remind yourself that it's okay to pause. It's okay to make mistakes. It's okay to take your time, because the moment you relax, your brain opens again. The words come back. The sentences return. Your flow begins to rebuild. So the next time you feel like you forgot everything, don't panic. Don't tell yourself, "I can't speak." Instead, tell yourself, "I just need to relax." Take a breath. Slow down your thoughts. Start with simple words, and you will notice something powerful. Your English was never gone. It was just waiting for your mind to calm down. Because fluency is not only about language, it is about trust. Trust in what you already know. Trust in your ability to express. Trust that your words will come if you don't block them. And the moment you stop fighting your mind, your English starts coming back to you naturally and effortlessly. You keep waiting for confidence, but it never comes first. There is a belief inside you that feels completely logical, but it is quietly keeping you stuck. You believe that one day you will feel ready. You believe that one day your confidence will come, and then you will start speaking. You tell yourself, "I just need a little more practice, just a little more vocabulary, just a little more time, and then I'll be confident." And until that day comes, you wait. You stay silent in conversations. You avoid speaking opportunities. You choose to listen instead of express, because you are waiting for that feeling, that moment when everything inside you feels ready, calm, and strong. But here is the truth that most people never realize. Confidence does not come before speaking. Confidence is created by speaking. This is where everything changes, because the path you are following is backwards. You are trying to feel confident first and then take action. But in reality, action is what creates confidence. Think about any skill in your life. You were not confident the first time you tried it. You were not comfortable. You were not smooth. But you did it anyway. And each time you repeated it, something inside you changed. You became a little faster, a little more relaxed, a little more sure of yourself. That is how confidence was built. Not before action, but because of action. And speaking English works exactly the same way. Right now, you are standing at the edge, waiting to feel ready. But that feeling will never arrive on its own, because your brain builds confidence through experience, not through thinking. The more you avoid speaking, the more your brain sees speaking as something dangerous, something uncomfortable, something to avoid. And the longer you stay silent, the bigger that fear becomes. So when the moment finally comes, it feels even harder. This is the trap. Waiting feels safe, but it slowly makes speaking more difficult, because your brain is not getting the experience it needs to grow. But the moment you start speaking, even in small ways, something powerful begins to happen. At first, it feels uncomfortable. Your voice may shake. Your sentences may not come out smoothly. You may pause. You may make mistakes. You may feel unsure, but you still spoke. And that one moment sends a new signal to your brain. It tells your mind, I can do this. Then you do it again and again. Each time, the fear becomes slightly smaller. Each time, your words come a little faster. Each time, your mind becomes a little more relaxed. This is how confidence grows. Slowly, quietly, through repetition, not through waiting. You don't wake up one day feeling confident. You build it, step by step, through action. And the most important part is this: you don't need to feel ready to start. You just need to start, even if your sentences are simple, even if your voice is not strong, even if you feel nervous inside. Because confidence is not the absence of fear. It is the decision to speak, even when fear is present. This is the shift you must make. Stop asking yourself, do I feel confident enough? Start asking yourself, can I say something right now? Even one small sentence, even one simple response. That is enough. Because every time you speak, you are training your brain to become comfortable. You are replacing fear with familiarity. You are replacing hesitation with movement, and slowly, the feeling you were waiting for begins to appear. Not all at once, not suddenly, but gradually. You notice that you are thinking less. You notice that your words are coming faster. You notice that you are less afraid to speak. And one day, without realizing it, you speak, and it feels normal. That is confidence, not something you waited for, but something you created. So if you truly want to move forward, you must stop waiting. Stop waiting to feel ready. Stop waiting to feel perfect. Stop waiting to feel confident, because that moment will never come on its own. You have to create it by speaking, by trying, by allowing yourself to be imperfect, by stepping forward even when your mind says, not yet. Because not yet can turn into years of silence if you let it. And you are not stuck because you lack ability. You are stuck because you are waiting for a feeling that only comes after action. So, change the order. Speak first. Confidence will follow. And once you understand this deeply, something inside you shifts. You stop looking for the perfect moment. You start creating it. One sentence at a time. One conversation at a time. One step forward, even when it feels uncomfortable. And that is how your voice grows. That is how your fluency builds. That is how you finally move from silence to expression, to confidence that feels real. Your mouth is not trained, and that's the real problem. You think your problem is in your mind. You think you don't know enough words. You think your grammar is weak. You think your confidence is low. But the real problem is something much simpler and much deeper. Your mouth is not trained. You have spent so much time learning English inside your head, but almost no time using it with your voice. You understand sentences when you hear them. You recognize patterns when you read them. You can even imagine what you want to say. But when it's time to speak, your mouth hesitates. It feels slow. It feels uncomfortable. It feels unnatural. And in that moment you think, maybe I don't know English well enough. But that's not the truth. The truth is, your brain knows the sentence, but your mouth is not used to producing it. This is a physical gap. Speaking is not just thinking. Speaking is a physical skill. It involves your tongue, your lips, your breathing, your rhythm, your voice. All of these need training, just like any other physical skill. Think about it like this. If someone learns how to play a sport by watching videos, reading rules, and understanding strategies, but never actually practices with their body, what will happen when they step onto the field? They will struggle, not because they don't understand the game, but because their body is not trained to perform it. And that is exactly what is happening to you. You understand English, but your speaking muscles are not trained. Your mouth is not used to forming these sounds quickly. Your tongue is not used to moving in this pattern. Your voice is not used to expressing these sentences smoothly. So when you try to speak, everything feels slow and heavy. This is why you hesitate. This is why your pronunciation feels off. This is why your sentences don't come out the way you want. It's not a knowledge problem. It's a training problem. And once you understand this, everything becomes clear. You stop blaming your intelligence. You stop doubting your ability. You start focusing on the right thing, training your mouth, because fluency does not live in your mind. It lives in your voice. You must say the sentences out loud, not once, not twice, but again and again, until your mouth becomes comfortable with them. At first, it will feel strange. You may feel awkward speaking alone. You may feel like your voice doesn't sound right. You may feel slow and unsure. But this is the beginning of real progress. Every time you say a sentence out loud, you are building a connection between your brain and your mouth. You are teaching your body how to express what your mind already knows. This is how speed is created. This is how clarity is built. This is how fluency becomes real. Because when your mouth is trained, something powerful happens. You don't have to think as much. Your words come out faster, your sentences feel smoother, your confidence grows naturally. Not because you forced it, but because your body is now capable. Most learners skip this step. They keep everything inside their head. They learn silently. They practice mentally. But when it's time to speak, their body is not ready. And that is why they feel stuck. But you are not going to make that mistake. You are going to train your voice. Speak every day. Repeat simple sentences out loud. Don't rush. Focus on clarity. Let your mouth feel the words. Let your tongue get used to the movement. Let your voice find its rhythm. Even if you are alone, speak. Even if it feels uncomfortable, speak. Even if you think it's too basic, speak. Because this is where the real transformation happens. At first, you will notice small changes. Your pronunciation becomes clearer. Your hesitation becomes shorter. Your sentences become easier to say. Then, slowly, bigger changes begin. You stop thinking too much. You start responding faster. You feel more natural when speaking, and one day something clicks. You say a sentence without effort, no pause, no struggle, no overthinking. It just comes out. That moment is not luck. That moment is training. It is the result of repetition, of speaking, of using your voice again and again until it becomes automatic. This is what most people are missing. They are waiting for fluency to happen in their mind, but fluency is built in the mouth. So if you truly want to speak English naturally, you must train the part of you that actually speaks, not just your brain. Your mouth. Because once your mouth is trained, your English stops feeling like something you learned and starts feeling like something you can use, easily, naturally, without fear. Until English becomes your first reaction, you'll stay stuck. There is one final barrier that keeps your English from becoming natural. It is not your vocabulary. It is not your grammar. It is not even your confidence. It is your first reaction. Right now, when something happens, when someone speaks to you, asks you a question, or when you want to express an idea, your first reaction is not English. Your first reaction is your native language. The thought appears there first. The sentence forms there first. The feeling becomes clear there first. And only after that, you try to move it into English. This delay is small, but powerful, because fluency does not live in the second step. It lives in the first reaction. When English is not your first response, your brain has to take an extra step every single time. It has to convert, adjust, and rebuild. And that extra step is what creates hesitation, pressure, and slow speaking. This is why you feel like you are always behind the conversation. By the time you are ready to speak, the moment has already moved on. You understand everything, but you cannot enter the flow. This is the hidden reason you feel stuck, because fluency is not about knowing English. It is about reacting in English. Think about how you speak your own language. You don't prepare. You don't translate. You don't wait. Your response comes instantly, because your brain is used to thinking in that language. It does not need time to switch. It does not need effort to express. It simply reacts. And that is the level you need to reach in English. Not perfect English, not advanced English. Reactive English. Simple, fast, automatic responses that come without delay. But this does not happen by accident. You must train your brain to change its default system. Right now, your brain has a habit. It automatically chooses your native language first, and habits do not change by understanding. They change by repetition. You must slowly teach your brain to respond in English first. At the beginning, this feels uncomfortable. Your thoughts feel limited. Your sentences feel small. Your mind feels slower, because your brain is not used to this new path. It wants to go back to what is easy, what is familiar, what is automatic. But if you keep practicing, something starts to shift. You begin to catch small moments. Moments where you respond in English without translating. Moments where your answer comes faster than before. Moments where you don't have to think as much. These moments are important, because they are signs that your brain is changing. At first, it happens rarely. Then it happens more often. Then one day, it becomes normal, and that is when everything changes. Because when English becomes your first reaction, your speaking becomes effortless. You don't wait. You don't freeze. You don't search. You respond. Even if your sentences are simple, they come out smoothly. Even if your grammar is not perfect, your message is clear. And most importantly, you stay in the flow of the conversation. This is what fluency feels like. Not heavy, not stressful, but light, natural, and continuous. To reach this level, you must practice reacting, not preparing. When you hear a question, answer quickly, even if your answer is basic. When you think something, try to say it in English immediately, even if it's incomplete. When you see something around you, describe it in English inside your mind. But these small actions train your brain to switch its default. They remove the extra step. They build speed. They create familiarity. And slowly, English starts becoming part of your thinking, not just something you learned. This is the real goal, not to speak perfect English, but to think in English without effort. Because once your thinking changes, your speaking follows automatically. You don't have to force it. You don't have to build sentences step by step. You simply express what is already forming inside you, and that is when you stop feeling stuck, because the problem was never your knowledge. The problem was your reaction. So if you want to move forward, you must stop giving your brain 2 steps. Remove the first one. Stop going through your native language. Start small. Start simple. Start fast. And train yourself to react in English, even if it feels uncomfortable at first, because discomfort is part of change. And change is what creates fluency. The moment English becomes your first reaction is the moment your speaking becomes natural. And once that happens, you are no longer trying to speak English. You are simply speaking. This simple reset will finally make you speak naturally after everything you've understood, after all the struggle, the confusion, the frustration. It comes down to one simple truth. You don't need a new language. You need a new system, because the way you've been trying to speak English was never designed for real speaking. You were taught to think first. You were trained to be perfect. You were told to translate. You were guided to stay safe and avoid mistakes. And all of that created a system inside your mind that slows you down every time you try to speak. So the problem was never your ability. The problem was your approach. And now it's time for a reset, not a complicated reset, not a heavy method. A simple shift that changes everything. A reset from thinking to reacting, from perfect to flowing, from silent to active. This is where your real journey begins, because fluency is not something you learn one day. It is something you build daily through small actions that reshape your mind. The first part of this reset is simple. You stop trying to sound perfect. You let go of the pressure to be correct every time. You allow your sentences to be simple, even broken. You focus on expressing your idea instead of fixing every detail. And because the moment you release perfection, your mind becomes lighter, and a light mind speaks faster. The second part of this reset is even more important. You start speaking every single day, not occasionally, not when you feel ready, but daily. No matter how you feel, even if it's just a few minutes, even if you're alone, even if your sentences are basic, you use your voice, because your voice is where fluency lives. Each day you speak, you are building a connection between your thoughts and your words. Each day you repeat simple sentences. You are training your brain to respond faster, and slowly your hesitation begins to disappear. The third part of this reset is where the real transformation happens. You start using daily sentences, simple, repeated, real-life phrases that your brain can use instantly. I'll do it. Wait for me. I don't understand. Give me a second. I think it's okay. These are not just sentences. They are tools. They create automatic responses inside your mind. They remove the need to think too much. They give your brain something familiar to hold on to. And when your brain feels familiar, it feels confident. Over time, these small sentences grow. They connect with each other. They expand naturally. And your speaking becomes smoother without you forcing it. The fourth part of this reset is your mindset. You stop seeing mistakes as failure. You start seeing them as movement. Every time you make a mistake while speaking, it means you are trying. It means you are using the language. It means you are building fluency. But every time you stay silent to avoid mistakes, you stop your own progress. And so you change the way you see discomfort. You don't run from it. You move through it. Because discomfort is not a sign that you are doing something wrong. It is a sign that you are growing. The fifth part of this reset is speed. You focus on keeping your flow. You don't stop in the middle of a sentence to fix every detail. You allow your words to move forward. You keep speaking, even if it's not perfect. Because speed creates rhythm, and rhythm creates confidence. When you stay in motion, your brain learns to keep up. It becomes faster. It becomes more natural. And slowly your speaking starts to feel effortless. The sixth part of this reset is consistency. You don't expect instant results. You understand that fluency is built step by step, day by day, sentence by sentence, moment by moment. Some days will feel easy, and some days will feel difficult, but you keep going, because consistency is what turns effort into habit, and habit is what creates fluency. Now something important begins to happen. At first you notice small changes. You hesitate less. You think less. You speak a little faster. Then those small changes grow. You start responding without translating. You feel more comfortable using simple English. You don't freeze as much as before. And then one day, something unexpected happens. You speak without thinking. No pause, no fear, no heavy effort, just natural expression. And in that moment, you realize something. You didn't suddenly become fluent. You built it through repetition, through speaking, through showing up every day. This is the power of the reset. It does not change your English overnight. It changes your system. And once your system changes, everything else follows. You no longer feel stuck. You no longer feel blocked. You no longer feel like English is something difficult, because now it feels like something you can use freely, naturally, confidently. And the most powerful part is this. You stop asking, "Can I speak English?" Because now you already are, not perfectly, not like a textbook, but like a real person, expressing real thoughts in real time. And that is what fluency truly is. Not perfection, not complexity, but freedom. The freedom to speak without fear, the freedom to express without stopping, the freedom to be understood without overthinking. So, this is your reset. Simple, clear, powerful, speak daily. Use simple sentences. Let go of perfection. Focus on flow. Accept mistakes. Stay consistent. And trust the process. Because if you follow this, slowly but surely, your English will stop feeling like something you are learning and start feeling like something you live. Right now, nothing about you is missing. You already have the words. You already understand the language. You already came further than you realize. The only thing that was holding you back was the way you were trying to use it. And now, that changes. From this moment, you don't wait. You don't overthink. You don't chase perfection anymore. You speak, even if it's simple, even if it's slow at first, even if it feels uncomfortable. Because every time you speak, you are building something powerful inside you. You are training your mind to react. You are training your mouth to move. You are training your confidence to grow. And one day, very soon, you will notice something different. You will respond without translating. You will speak without stopping. You will express yourself without fear. And it won't feel like effort anymore. It will feel natural. That is the moment you've been waiting for. Not when your English becomes perfect, but when it becomes yours. So don't go back to silence. Don't go back to overthinking. Don't go back to waiting. Start today. Speak one sentence, then another. Then keep going, because your fluency is not in the future. It begins the moment you decide to use your voice, and once you do, there is no going back.